24th of the first month. My dearest Maria, I write to you even as my body shakes with cold and my spirit claws at the walls of my tiny room aboard this vessel. We set sail from northern Svart not but a few days ago, and yet it feels like we've been floating aimlessly on this icy ocean for a lifetime. The fog is like a living thing, coiling through whatever protection I wear and biting at my bones. No members of the fishing crew nor the captain seem fazed by the fog. I assume that, as a scholar of the magical arts, my lack of seafaring experience leaves me vulnerable to the sea's cold presence more so than the rugged men and women around me. Still, I accept whatever warmth I can acquire and huddle close to my lamp in order to write you this letter. What time is not spent trying to fight off the chilling fog is instead spent with my studies. Other ships arriving from this charting path reported extreme levels of fog and sea creatures unlike any described on our planet moving through the depths. We have just recently reached the first set of coordinates in my research, and besides the cold mists clinging to every inch of our vessel, I have yet to witness any monsters of indescribable horror. Certain waterfowl and earth-sign creatures are known for these parts, as well as the occasional ice dragon, but not this far into open waters. Even robust creatures such as those require some form of solid land upon which to retreat to. Yet here we are in waters so deep, I cannot fathom how anything humanoid could survive the almost unholy cold that radiates from its dark surface. Despite this, I continue my efforts shortly after breakfast. This involves tracing underwater ley lines through a precise set of arcane and arithmetical calculations that I shall not bore you with, my dear. Though I have managed to reduce a few members of the crew to drooling states once I get rambling as I do. Once I conclude the daily ritual of breakfast and then performing my calculations, I collect samples of both seawater and ice if I can collect it at all. While I could freeze the seawater of my own accord, I need a natural specimen to see if another magic is creating this unnatural weather or something more complex is afoot. So far, the results have been extraordinary and have rapidly begun to border on maddening in regard to their origin. The water itself contains a pollutant, thick and black, as if one of the crew has been dumping a barrel of oil into the waters every day since we departed. To further this idea, I even used a few pages of the ink-like waters to prepare my ritual notes this morning, and the liquid took to the parchment with almost reckless abandon, practically dragging my quill into the proper runes. While I appreciate this endless resource, I also find myself wary of it. The fish drawn from the depths and onto the deck every morning are unnerving, featuring optical organs and tentacles in locations that should not be. There were no reports of fish that were twisted and perverse in these waters. Once again, neither the strange fish nor the stained black waters themselves seem to slow the almost mechanical motions of the crew's daily routine. But I have only since recently accepted the porridge from the kitchen. One makes sacrifices where he must, for science, I suppose. As if the midnight waters were not peculiar enough, the ice I find drifting upon its surface could not be more distant from its surroundings if it tried. The ice is a pure sea green and contains the same essence of black, inky waters in which it floats. I initially hypothesized that the ice itself was the source of the obsidian liquid polluting the waters, and found my intellect confirmed when I finally found a sample small enough to bring on board. The surface of the ice was smooth, as if carved by a well-known bartender. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen, rivaling even the crystals hosted back in the official Mage Tower's galleries, and its contents seemed to twist and churn like a potion recently pulled from the cauldron. Once I subjected it to a stable enough sense of heat, that being, the very same lamp I am currently surviving off of, the ice reduced to a more pure, paint-like substance that seemed to flow away from the light of my quarters, completely of its own accord. I have since informed the captain and his crew about this discovery, though their usually cold response is making me question interacting with them at all. I receive enough chill from the fog and the ice. I dare not seek it now among my fellow men. Regardless of my own emotional or physical discomfort, this fascinating anomaly requires further study, and I shall keep you informed of my progress as I always do. Your fellow scholar and partner in life, Peter Roldrin. 13th of the 2nd month. My lovely Maria. I miss the warmth of home and of our study, but most of all, I miss you beside me. The fog has become so invasive of the ship that I swear it has become a regular bedfellow, and I lose sleep to its bitter presence as my bones shake within my body. I will admit I have cursed my own hubris in becoming a cryomancer solely, and I am sure you revel in the realization that I should have expanded my magical studies, as you instructed. Despite the lack of feeling in my limbs and lack of restful sleep, I have made headway into deciphering this strange ocean in which I drift. The waters at this time remain unchanged, and the fish drawn from them become increasingly bizarre. As we've yet to find any port in this frozen wasteland, I have been forced to dine upon the strange wildlife due to a lack of any other alternatives. Much to my own shame and disgust, I have become rather fond of the local strange fish. The crew has no name for it, but snacking on it both cooked or simply raw when I have the free moment has become a regular pastime. As I am denied sleep, a full stomach is one of the few pleasures I can still obtain, and I take it where I can. While the water still remains silent with the source of their alien inhabitants, the ice samples I have collected seem almost excited to spill their contents, albeit done without any form of illumination. The chemical initially seemed to recoil from the lamp I used to melt it from its icy prison, and I have since discovered why. When placing a few samples upon one of the cooking stations in the kitchen, in order to obtain heat without as much light, I found the ink is liquid shadow in its elemental form. Once it has been freed from the ice, its reaction to light and its near primal level of sentience matches all definitions of textbook elemental shadow magic. I've never seen it so condensed as to form a liquid that I could bottle if I so chose. Yes, I will also note here that this means I have both utilized water with an unnaturally high attunement to the shadow plane in my rituals, as well as eaten aquatic life with its essence soaked into this fish's sweet flesh. The thought initially unnerved me, but after a moment of calming recollection, every being is composed of an elemental balance, and surely I have not shredded my own with a few meals of odd fish. If I must be honest, my dear, I find myself more drawn to my work than ever, even ignoring my odd diet and lack of rest. In one of my studies that ran for well over 48 hours, I determined that the shadow ice is in fact not forming through some natural phenomenon. The cryomantic binding around the liquid darkness is artificial, but seems almost accidental in nature. Given your eyes' knowledge of magical artifacts and the repercussions of leaving them unattended, I believe a direct investigation is needed to prove my theory. If some shadow-based relic is polluting this location, then it is my right as a scholar and mage both to see it retrieved for study. My stomach grumbles for another plate of fish before I prepare the diving spell, so I shall go appease it before perhaps finding one of the greatest magical discoveries of our time. You shall be ever in my thoughts, my dearest, even in this cold, hellish place. Yours forever, Peter Roldrin. 6th of the 3rd month. My beautiful Maria, I greatly appreciate the blanket you had delivered via portal a few days past, though I now regret to inform you since my dive into the murky waters below, I no longer suffer from the bone-biting chill of the fog. It seems that, as I theorized, I simply needed time to acclimate, and now meet the morning fog and cold with a pleasant expectancy. Regarding my dive itself, I am happy to say that my second hypothesis was also correct. I know, how very shocking. I did indeed locate the source of the shadow pollution. It appears to be some form of ceremonial dagger, seemingly carved from a substance like that of the ice and glaciers we sail through. Its blade consists of aquatic tendrils that twist as if it was originally a living thing and is simply suspended within its frozen tomb. This is not the case, however, as any forms of heat I applied did nothing to ward off the chill of the blade, and did nothing to melt its surface, and I can spot no other organs or limbs beyond the tentacles within the blade itself. One thing I can say with complete certainty, though, is that the artifact is beyond infused with the raw power of this dark place. It seems the ice and polluted waters were simply a byproduct of the weapon itself, as I hypothesized, but the elemental enchantment running through it does not seem to originate from any natural sources of darkness. Upon further inspection through a detection ritual, the energies seem to respond in the frantic, almost psychotic pattern known to the void. While powerfully enchanted, it seems unable to cast magic of its own accord, as I attempted numerous times to channel my cryomantic powers through it, much to no avail, unfortunately. Not trusting one of the sour-faced crew not to try and swipe the artifact to sell once we finally return to land, I had not taken it upon myself to keep the dagger on my person, hanging visible from my belt in a statement. I have braved these obsidian depths, and I am not to be trifled with when so close to a magical discovery. The sea scum aboard this vessel cannot begin to fathom the importance of my work, and I will not risk them interfering with it, unknowingly or otherwise. Their presence is only required to retrieve more of that outlandish wildlife that seems to never run out, as if the ocean herself is providing me the nourishment that I need to continue my work. We are returning to Northensvald soon, as I have located another source of enlightenment from the great depths below us. I shall bring you back her glorious bounty, and we shall share in its sweet, supple flesh together. Yours, always, Peter Roldrin. 18th of the 3rd month. My hunger for the sweet, tender flesh of these alien fish seems never-ending now, and I have a barrel on the deck I often return to feast from in between sessions of study or arcane experimentations. while it is unable to be used for any spellcasting purposes, I will say that the dagger seems extremely apt at carving the flesh of living creatures, as I've been able to remove any organs and carve fillets from the local fish with incredible ease through the usage of its blade. Between my ravenous meals upon the seemingly endless supply of wonderful fish and the further enlightening experiments, I have abandoned sleep entirely outside of the few times my body has collapsed onto the deck. I cannot begin to describe my dreams through these short periods of unconsciousness in their true beauty, for even my endless intellect is unable to form the words to properly do so, though I shall try. Endless expanses of coral structures filled with aquatic beings of every shape and origin, as if all beings of land and sea have become one in one great unifying moment. They welcome me as if I am one of their own, despite lacking any aquatic features myself that seem to extend from every patch of their bodies. Tentacles, fins, bulging eyes that seem to stare into my soul, or where my soul should be. I'm fed more of their holy fish and flesh from other creatures that I was unable to identify. They were all equally blissful in flavor, filling my mind and body with a power and nourishment that is simply beyond the comprehension of man. Every time I awake before I can get my fill, I find my hunger sparked anew, almost driven mad until my craving for the sweet flesh is sated. The crew has begun to eye me during these episodes as I break into the barrels like a starved dog and tear at their latest catch with nails and teeth, not even wishing the great bounty to be wasted with their land spices. The meat is perfect in its freshest form when raw, and I intend to have my fill despite what they think. They plan to prepare the last of the sweet flesh for sales to other land people, but I cannot allow this sin. The flesh is too sweet, the fish too blessed. The dagger of the deep carves bodies and meat so easily. Surely it will find no trouble in disposing of them of the sea scum before they can ruin that which they do not understand. I shall dispose of their remains as a gift to those of the deep that have blessed me with the truth and the feast upon this bounty. Then I shall return to the depths and seek out the beings from my dreams. Together, we shall gorge ourselves upon the sea's bounty until the time comes to bless the surface world with our gifts and our knowledge of the darkest places. I shall miss you, Maria, my sweetest flesh of all, but know this, one day I will return and show this blind world the truth found in the cold, sweet depths.
Sinalo College Kilado Lisaka